got a well-developed industry in terms of we've got committees that look after our voiceover rates. We've got agencies that push the work. So there's a lot in the way of the work element, but on the back end, on the grassroots, what I'd say is there's nothing. There's nothing really from a training perspective.
Hi, and welcome to the Everything Voiceovers podcast. I'm Tcode, an African voiceover talent from Nigeria, and this is my podcast, where I take on voiceover topics from an African perspective. On this episode, my guest is Themba Robin. Themba is a thriving South African voiceover artist, comedy actor, and MC. With his undeniable versatility as a full-time voice actor, Themba gives us a peep into the South African voiceover industry. Sit back and enjoy this episode. Hi guys, welcome to another super interesting episode of the Everything Voiceovers podcast, The African Perspective. Like you all know, I am Tcode, your host. And like I love to do on this podcast, I love to bring personalities who are thriving in the voiceover space in the continent of Africa. And we talk about voiceover content in general. Now, joining me today is a South African comedy actor, MC, and voiceover artist. He's known as Themba Robin, known voice actor in the industry as a versatile performer in any style. Now, if you're looking for a great voice, a commercial flair, or high energy drive for your event, Themba is your guy. So, ladies and gentlemen, I present to you none other than Themba Robin. Themba, it's a delight to have you on this podcast. How are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm amazing, Tcode. How are you doing?
I'm so good. I'm good. I've been following you for a while. I've been checking out your stuff, and you have some amazing, funny content. I gotta ask you, first of all, what came first? Was it the comedy or the voiceovers?
I think they're both sort of they progressed next to each other in a very slow, weird manner. But I think in terms of maybe from a professional aspect, the voiceover came second. Just because I never knew it could be a thing. Comedy always has an element that you could sell a little bit of comedy, but I never knew what you could do with voice. So voice came second. Yeah.
Oh wow! And you have an amazing voice, by the way.
No, likewise. So do you.
Thank you very much. Now, there's something I like to do on the podcast, because understanding that we have a global audience and even an African audience, I tend to interview people from across the continent, and then we come across different names. So it's very important, that I understand how your name is being pronounced properly, and also what it means, just for the record. So I'll start with mine, right? So my name is Tolulope Kolade. That sounds like a mouthful, right? But you can call me Tolu Kolade, and my nickname is Tcode. So Tolulope means what belongs to God is thanks, and Kolade means you're building a house of wealth, or you gather wealth. That's what it means. So that's what my name means, and it's pronounced Tolulope Kolade.
Tolulope Kolade. Kolade.
It was a good try. Okay, I'll take it again. Tolulope Kolade. Try it.
Tolulope Kolade.
I think that was about 70% there. So yeah, you tried. You passed. So the name, I'm Yoruba. Yeah, I'm Yoruba from Nigeria. So that's just to give a bit of background to where that came from. Yeah. So nice to have you. So about your name, Themba Robin. How is it pronounced? Is it the TH Themba or Themba? And what does it mean?
It's the latter, so Themba with like a silent H. So we don't pronounce the in the TH.
Oh yeah.
So it's it's one of the easier names. I think I got lucky. I think especially in Africa we can get a lot of confusing names to pronounce. But yeah, so it's Themba. with the silent H, and that means hope.
Hope.
So it's just simply, it's just simply hope. I wish I had like an elaborate story behind it, but that hoping for, whether it be health, wealth, longevity, or any of those things. But that's what Themba means. And then the robin, it's part of my performance name, but it's with reference to the bird. So it's a bird that we have around here. It's also a bird that's tied into religion quite a bit, with the robin in in the Christian sense. So that's my name.
Fantastic. Themba Robin. That's like a superhero name,
and you nailed it. I'm gonna I'm blushing.
Awesome, man. Awesome. So let's talk about your early influences into voiceovers. Let's get to the vein of it. You are a great voiceover artist in South Africa, but
thank you.
I don't know, did you think you were going to become a voice actor in the future, or was it something you stumbled on and you felt like, okay, I'd like to do this?
Yeah, so I think it's something I stumbled on a couple of years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, where we grew up in the Eastern Cape of South Africa. There's not a lot of opportunity. It's mostly rural. There's 1 or 2 hubs where there's some good stuff going on, but even the hubs and the busy areas are nowhere compared to the likes of Johannesburg or Cape Town, the places that people know from around the world. So from an opportunity perspective, we never grew up thinking that you had any other options other than the everyday careers. And then I moved to Johannesburg, and I started seeing, people are creative and people are calling themselves copywriters and this and that. And so then I started to realize, there's an actual industry here. But then at the same time, you meet these people who are voice artists, and you go, well, there's no space for me. There's, you've got the likes of Tolulope and some of the other guys. I can't get everybody's names now, but they're so well established. You think to yourself, how could I possibly move into this space and do anything, so that's also, it makes it tough for you to accept that this is something you want to do. But I tried for a couple of years, and it was just slow and steady. I was willing to accept that it was going to be a long a long road, should I say. And it wasn't an easy road. But I think, like we had briefly mentioned before, you said to me that you knew you were going to take this seriously. And so I knew I was going to take this seriously. And with that, I didn't worry about time. I didn't care about how long it would take. I just knew eventually I just wanted to be better each day. And you don't actually notice it, but you take a moment, you look back and you go, wow. Like, I don't even know how it happened.
Wow. How long have you been doing voiceovers for? So
in the early days, I think I'd probably only do about 4 voiceovers a year. It was very slow, and I only did online platforms. So I used to use voices.com, and that was the first 2 years. So I can say now, probably also from about 2019, I've been doing local and international work on a regular basis, regular enough to call myself a voiceover artist. But all in all, from the get-go, it's been about 5 years, but let's say 6 years. But of that 6 years, the last 3 have been working 6 years.
Yeah, I can relate, because it's a gradual process. I'll assume that you were working, you had a 9 to 5 or some sort of, thing you were doing before, and then you realized you could do voiceovers, and gradually you started catching up, and someday you just realized, well, I could live off voiceovers, and you quit your job. That's my story, really. And it's something that I've seen a lot of voice actors talk about too. So let's talk about go on.
No, no, I was gonna say, yeah, just to touch on that. Yeah, that moment for me happened this year in March. So
Oh,
despite
March this
having
year.
March this year, yeah.
Wow,
So despite
interesting.
having that a good footing, it took a long time for me to go, boy, I'm gonna really do this. I'm really gonna do this after 2 years of doing both worlds.
Oh
It's
yeah.
only now that I had that confidence to go, okay, cool,
And
this
has
is
it
where we're going.
been a full-time
It,
voice talent?
no looking back, no looking back. Absolute
Never
correct
regretted it one
decision.
day.
No,
Yeah,
correct
yeah, I
decision,
love that
right
feeling.
time.
Yeah, I feel that the flexibility of your time, although you always have work to do somewhere or the
Mm,
other, but then you can also be flexible and have time to do other things that you want to do. So it's a great
mm,
thing. Let's talk about the
100%.
South African voiceover industry. I know a lot of people
Mm,
are willing to know about the industry, and you're my first guest from South Africa. What's it like over there? Are there institutes of learning as much as one would anticipate? Are there is there an association?
mm.
How is it? How's the industry in South Africa?
So it's a really good question, and it's as I'm thinking about how to answer it, it's a funny one because South Africa is a very um, we've got a well-developed industry in terms of we've got committees that look after our voiceover rates. We've got agencies that push the work. So there's a lot in the way of the work element, but on the back end, on the grassroots, what I'd say is there's nothing. There's nothing really from a training perspective. There are a lot of artists who have made it professionally who offer
Mm,
training, but I struggle with that concept a lot of the time because I find that guys charge a relatively large amount of money, and
mm,
you can't sell someone 2 lessons or 3 or 4 lessons. You need to have someone almost in a mentorship program where it's a good 6 months that we're going to sit together and help you push this craft. So there are
mm.
there are a few people who are doing one-on-one sessions, but from a body like like you guys have the voiceover conference and that there isn't that sort of thing here. So yeah, a really established market, but not too much in terms of training and getting going. Yeah.
Fantastic. And I also am aware of the existence of rate cards or
Mm,
those things. I believe they help to put structure to the industry also in your country. How about
mm,
let's talk about people that are joining in the industry in South Africa, young voice talent. What's the
mm,
process like for them? How do they uh, you know gain their ground or their footing in the
mm.
industry over there?
It's really difficult. I won't lie. I think one of the reasons we enjoy creating content um, for young voice artists is because when we were coming up, there was nothing. There still is very little um, other than what's created. So for someone who's coming up, there's there's not a lot out there for you to chew on. You kind of have to go on this discovery, this path yourself, kind of thing. So
Mm,
what I like to say to the guys is, find your voice. If that it
mm,
sounds cliche, but that's what it is. You've got to find your voice and put yourself out there and promote yourself. Then you need to get someone in your corner. So I freelanced for many years just by myself. But as soon as I got an agent, that made my life a lot easier because they were out there hustling,
mm.
and they take that conversation, which is an awkward one, when you're one on one. Imagine I'm trying to sell you a voiceover, and now we have to
Yeah,
get into the awkward discussion about rates, and
yeah,
it, we might agree on a price at some point, but we're still going to feel a little bit weird about each other. Now we have to work together in a creative sense. So that's what's nice about having an agent. They take care of that so that when you get to the studio, you can just be you. You can just be the creative and the performer and all of that. You don't have to worry about, oh, yesterday we were arguing about money. So that's the cool thing about having an agent. They're scouting the work for you. They look after the rate card and make sure you get paid fairly. because it is also it's a tough world out there. If you're doing it yourself, sometimes clients will ask you for pickups 3, 4, 5 times, which they should be billed for. And a lot of the time when you're by yourself, you don't feel like you have the guts to say, hey guys, I need extra money for these edits. And that's where it comes to looking after the industry, because the professionals would charge for that. And then as soon as the new guys aren't charging for those sort of things, then the marketplace seems to think that it's abnormal when somebody charges for pickups or something like that. When actually it's your time, it's your talent. So charge for it accordingly.
Great. I see you mentioned agents. Are there agents in South Africa for voice talent?
Yeah.
Wow.
There's not a lot.
Okay.
I think there's maybe 3 or 4 that are noteworthy, who actually dominate the majority of the scene. So they get access to the bigger contracts, MTN, a lot of the big insurance companies, that sort of thing, big events that need voiceover artists. So next week, in about 10 days, we're doing Miss South Africa. So we've got quite a bit of voiceover work that's happening for that, which I'll be doing. So super grateful that my agent has connections to that sort of work. But to be honest with you, 4 isn't a lot when you look at the rest of the world. So
I agree.
we're ahead, but not that far. Yeah,
I agree, because here in Nigeria, I don't know of any agent.
Really?
There is an association, right? And a lot of the jobs that come, I see that usually they come via advertising agencies and their relationship with the voice actors themselves. Some of them have known, they have a working relationship for years, whereas some are just discovered, and when they get discovered, they start working with them. Other than that, you may have clients reach out to you one-on-one, but the existence of agents that are specifically catering for voice talent, they don't exist. The closest you'll get is joining the Association of Voiceover Actors in Nigeria. That's the professional body, and that may get you some bigger clients, as it were. But it's good to hear that things like that exist in South Africa. And I was also speaking with a friend, and she was telling me of your rate card, how it is very standard and quite professional. So shout out to you guys over there. yeah, great. Shout out to you guys. Let's talk about your venture into online platforms, pay-to-play sites. We've heard a lot of the marketing from this part of the world about pay-to-plays. I think one of the biggest challenge for most Africans, and this I'm speaking from experience, is although I didn't start with Voice123 or Voices.com back then. I only knew of the Fivers, right? So when I started with the Fivers, it was a very tough platform to leverage or to grow on. But that's not even the biggest issue I had. My challenge was most of the jobs that I saw on that platform, or on those platforms, Fivers, Upwork, freelancers, they weren't African jobs, as it were. So you had a lot of Africans trying to sound foreign to get those jobs. And 90% of the times they fail at it because the original speakers, they'll take the jobs. And after a while, you get tired of existing on those platforms and you just focus on other things. How did you survive? Because I know you're still on those platforms and you've been able to make some sort of name for yourself on the platforms. How did you, over the years, continue, succeed, and all?
Yes, at the beginning, I recorded a couple of demos. I had a microphone and I just thought, let me give it a go. And so I would just go online and I'd put my demos everywhere. Like I just put them like everywhere. I even now and then sometimes I find a website that I uploaded terrible demos like 4 or 5 years ago. I mean, it was before I really knew much, but I can still find those demos are awful and they're on some website somewhere. So that's what I started doing. I just started plugging anywhere I could, hoping someone will hear and that sort of thing. Then in a more, I think, concentrated effort, I got into a website, got into voices.com. And that was an interesting. I have a very weird relationship with voices.com because I hate the platform, but I get work on it. And I just like the platform because you pay a lot to be on there. So the first year I was on there, I didn't even buy a subscription. I was lucky enough to get privately invited. So if you just freelance on there, you have to be invited to a job. You can put your demos up. Once you're subscribed to the platform, you can see what jobs are being posted, which is nice. Then you can see, they're looking for an African voice for something. So you can go and drop an audition for that. So I was lucky enough to land 2 jobs, which gave me enough to pay the $299 yearly fee. And then from there, that was just my first year. I made enough money to subscribe to voices.com.
Yeah.
And the following year, I think I also got maybe 2 or 3 jobs. So, and I auditioned. I think the first year I auditioned for 100 jobs. I got 5 nearly, or it was it's like you said, it can be very disheartening. You're going for it, and somewhere I don't know if it was because I was constantly trying to improve and sound better and learn how to edit my stuff better. Eventually I just started to get a couple more jobs, and then I started to grow on that. So voices.com has definitely been one of the websites that I've really thrived on. I did an episode on my YouTube channel, Sketchytechza, where voices.com, I think Mandy.com is a UK based one. We looked at about 4 platforms that I've been on for over the course of a year, and we compared earning potential, costs, plug and pay to play, that sort of thing. Because Fiverr is great, but I've also found a lot of the Fiverr budgets are a lot smaller than what we should be going for. And I'm a true believer in we have to keep that price standard up. Because it affects all of us. Eventually, if we all start undercutting each other, it's a race to the bottom where none of us will be appreciated, remunerated for our time. So that's my one problem with Fiverr. But Fiverr is a great place to just almost like fishing. I put an advert out there. I fish once a week or once every 2 weeks. Somebody writes in and says, "Hey, can we talk about doing this?" So it's not an active one, but so every platform has its benefits. I think the platforms are nice because you can work from home, you can audition in your own time, but definitely if you can get some real world interactions, real companies in your area that you can go see face to face, that's always going to be the best, because they will word of mouth. That's how you can grow your personal business. The online platforms want you to keep coming back, so they're not going to go and tell their friends about you. Whereas if you know someone who owns a business, who is part of a business hub, and they can throw your name around there, then real world exposure is always first class.
It's a great idea. I remember listening to Jennifer Canary at a voiceover conference last year, and one of the things she said was that while we're doing local jobs, let's also pay a lot of attention to these platforms so we can also get the international jobs and make more money for ourselves as talent. Let me ask a question that is, I don't know how it works over there in South Africa, but here in Nigeria, I think that voice artists are not remunerated as much as they should be. How is it over there?
Yeah, so I think that's almost like a double-edged question, in that if you're talking about remuneration, I think for the most part, we South Africans are remunerated correctly, because we have our rate cards, and if you have an agent, they'll fight for every rand dollar that's owed to you. So in that respect, I think it's fine. I think if you're freelancing, you're going to have a little bit of trouble because people don't understand, and this is where the respect, I think, for the craft comes in, is everybody says you just go and stand in front of a microphone. No, you know, it's only once somebody's worked with a terrible voice artist that you realize how good the good guys are. You know, being able to come into a booth, do a read when the client wants you to put more emotion in it, to be able to do that first time. I've been in situations where I've worked with some artists and they've just failed to get the direction. Now, as a client, you maybe want to roll out a campaign. You need to roll it out by Thursday. You can't spend 4 days trying to get the voiceover to sound right. So that's why, you know, artists who know what they're doing, I have clients send me something, I give them 2 options, I send it out. They say, cool, send us the invoice. They're not coming back with pickups or anything because they know exactly what they describe to me is what they get back. And that is, that's something that's built up over time. So yes, sometimes I go into a booth and in 15 minutes, I can make a ridiculous sum of money. It sounds unfair. It sounds like I just walked in and spoke in front of a microphone. But the fact that I'm able to do it in 15 minutes, that it sounds good, that people are happy, that people got what they wanted in that 15 minutes, that is why you get paid the money you do. And I think for the everyday person, it just sounds so easy to just lay down some words in a microphone. But if there's a certain message or emotion that you're trying to invoke, I still struggle. Sometimes I get in and I'm having an off day and the client says, it's close, but can you, and you try and you try, and you know, so it's not always just so easy. And I think that's the thing that people pay for. That's the reason you get voices like the Morgan Freemans of the world, where you hear the voice and just go, man, I love the sound of that voice. Yeah. And that's taken years to perfect. When you get your paycheck at the end of the day, it's almost back pay for all those years that you had to sit learning and perfecting. So yeah, I think we are lucky though that we are well taken care of in South Africa for the most part, for the professionals. Yes.
Oh, great. And while you were speaking, it got me imagining what your production process is like, you know, and I really want to know how is it for you when from getting the gig, right, and getting into the studio and mixing, mastering, producing. What do you do? Tell us, run us through that production process for you.
So if somebody approaches me to do a job, usually, and this will happen for most voiceover artists, is you end up having your niches. You know, you have your avenues that you like to do. If it's corporate, if it's hard sell, like crazy over the top, you know. So a lot of the time when people approach you, it's because they're familiar with another job you've done that's quite similar. So I always like to see or find out where they're coming from to approach me if they saw me online or something. Then we understand a little bit about their job, what they want out of it. We do the quoting process, and then we decide on a timeline, be it a day, be it a week. Then I usually take a read through the script, and this is one thing that Chilu touches on in a couple of his lessons. I always go through my script to make sure I've got my pronunciations and I know what I'm talking about. And it's a strange thing. You can hear when someone knows what they're talking about or is understanding what they're talking about, as opposed to someone who's just reading words. Yes, you can pick it up on the inflections and the pronunciations, but there's some sort of confidence that happens when you know what your content is. Whether it's I'm busy doing an audiobook, an e-learning audiobook on plumbing. It's about 10 modules, and like I have to read everything twice so that I understand what's going on in this world of plumbing in order for my delivery to be correct. So getting familiar with your copy is a big step. Once you're familiar with your copy, and I always find that if you understand and you know what your copy is doing, it takes a lot of your work out of the post-production, because I can plan where my breaths are going to be now, because I understand what I'm reading and all of that. So now I don't have breaths all over the place. I'm not running out of air on sentences that I have to redo again give it power all the way to the end. So my post processing helps quite a lot. Then so once I've got my copy down, I go into the booth. I usually try and do 3 full through reads, and then I'll pick up on any couple of small sentences or anything like that I feel maybe need a bit of work or a bit of extra oomph, and then I come back to the control suite here, and I get to editing, and I do a cleanup, one run through, clean up, take out the breaths, any clicks, mouth noises, eliminate all of that, and then I get to the fun bit of laying on my EQ and my compressor, a little bit of hard limiter, and depending on what the read is. And then for those clients who want the sound design, then I always love pairing music. Like that's my favorite part, is to get a nice track and balance that, and then be able to send them this beautiful finished product. So not everybody likes that. Some companies have their in-house guys who will lay the songs and stuff, so I just send them the finished product. But those who need like the big final crescendo, then I always enjoy laying the music underneath it at the end. Yeah.
You sound like a professional already, because you have a home studio and then you do all of this. You do the voicing, you do the production, the mixing, the mastering. Like, I mean, that's awesome. Great. Awesome. I was going to ask about your top 3 voiceover genres. What are your top 3?
I like a soft sell. I enjoy selling, like trying to sell the luxury top end, slow deep deliveries. Try and get that imagery, because I think it's quite challenging to just control all those elements and then still sound, you've got to sound good, but your pace has to be right, and you've got to be clear but soft and strong. It's an interesting balance. So I like those. I like character deliveries. So a lot of the radio stuff, sometimes people say, oh, you have to be this type of character. So if it's dry or maybe you've got to be flamboyant or something like that, I like that element. It plays to the actor inside me kind of thing. Yeah. And then I do enjoy a little bit of e-learning and instructional stuff. It's almost boring, but there's a level of technique that you have to have in there to stay and keep people engaged while they're learning stuff. So yeah, I don't always enjoy the fact that it's long form. Like I say, the plumbing book that we're working on now, I'll be busy with it for about 2 months, and it's 2 months of just editing my own voice in long form, so nothing really changes. Wow. It can be very tedious. Yeah. So so those are my 3, I think.
Interesting. Those are great stuff. If you're not voice acting, what do you do for fun?
So I'm usually creating content. So it's a strange thing though, because usually if I wasn't or voiceovers, I would have been at work at my day job, up until a few months ago. So now I create a bit of content. I do have 1 or 2 small businesses on the side, so I've got to do the everyday tasks of bookkeeping and getting back to clients. So that's that. But yeah, I mean, I always enjoy creating content. We've got a little YouTube channel. Like you said at the beginning, it's very frustrating to try and get information when everything's from the West. I can watch product reviews, but it's products that I can only get in America or, that sort of thing. So I've started slowly now with the equipment that I have, doing reviews and talk about the tech that we have accessible to us in Africa and how it works, and in terms of getting those bits and pieces serviced, them the time thing. So that that's what I'm busy putting together at the moment. So yeah, it's just always creating something though, or practicing.
Great. You're talking about tech, and I like that too. So let's talk a little bit about tech, microphones, headphones, and all the gadgets we use for voice works. Which gadgets do you use? Tell us what your gear is like.
So in terms of studio monitors, my speakers, they're Monkey Gibbon 5s. So that's what I use to listen to my mixes at the end. But then when I'm doing my initial cleanup, I usually use these Audio Technicas. They're quite nice and balanced. They give you a nice, true report on what's going on. So you edit on that, then I listen through the monitors just to make sure everything's good. And then I've got the good old faithful Samson CO3 as my quick fix everyday mic. And then in the room next door in the booth that I actually record on most of the time, I'm using the SE Electronics SEX1A. It's actually an older microphone. I think it's been discontinued here. They've got the 1XA now or something, but so I've got those are the two microphones I record on most daily. And then I've just got a MacBook here with the screen monitor, just to see my wave files nice and big. always helps with editing. And then interface, I've got a little Audience ID14. It's this little guy here. It's a nice powerful little piece of work, and like I say, and this is one of those things that you wouldn't have as a problem in the West, is when our power goes out here, I need to be able to work. So this Audience ID14, it drives straight from my laptop, so I can plug my XLR condenser microphones in it, and everything's powered without me having to worry about the main grid, which is an important one.
Awesome. You've got a big powerhouse there, for a home studio.
No, all right. Thanks, man.
So we're already coming to the end of the interview already. Do you have anything you'd like to say to upcoming voiceover talents in Africa?
I think one of the biggest things I've learned, especially coming into this, there's a lot of people out there with amazing voices, but voiceover is one of those careers that will show you who outworks who. There's rewards for those who outwork others who put in the time and effort. So you meet people all the time, fantastic voices, but they think that's it. And they sit back and they get the few jobs that they do. There's a couple of people with okay to good voices, but they work so hard on offering more to the marketplace. So if you can learn 3 languages and you become a one-stop shop for that, that's great. Like my thing is, I like to offer turnkey service, so I can do the editing and everything for the person. So work harder than anybody else and make yourself valuable to the market, whichever way you see. If you see people are struggling with X on other artists, make sure you perfect that and make that a value add and a strength in your basket.
Amazing. And that's straight to the point and great advice there. So if we want to connect with you, your personal page, or for business sake, or even your YouTube content and all of that, how can we reach you?
So pretty much on all the platforms, I'm at Themba Robin, so THEMBA ROBIN. So you'll catch me on pretty much all the platforms under Themba Robin. And then if you'd like to see some tech reviews and that sort of stuff, you can see it at Sketchytechza. If you Google it or YouTube, Sketchytechza, and inbox me, DM me on any of those, and we'll get to talking.
Amazing. Wow, it's been an interesting conversation with you, Themba. And Themba, that's the word. Nice. I had to remind myself. Thank you so much.
No, Tolulope, Kolade.
Yeah, you tried.
I'm going to voice note you one of these days.
Thanks a lot. Tcode. That's much easier, right? And
amazing.
hopefully,
thank you for having me.
Hopefully we could we'll have another time where we get to talk more about voiceovers in Africa, but this has been a good one. So we'll catch up some other time, man.
Appreciate your time, and we'll see you out there.
All right, guys. So that's the end of the podcast for today, and I catch you next week. Till then, I say keep voicing and keep working. Have a great time. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe, leave a comment, and tell someone about it. Follow the podcast on Everything VOs on all social media platforms. Thanks for listening, and see you on the next episode.